human found his dragon ex-wife begging in the street. What happened next devastated him. Aliens of all species walked the sidewalks, their strange shapes and colors making the city look like a moving rainbow. Humans, though, were often easy to miss, seen as weak, simple, and unremarkable by most galactic standards. But John Rayner didn't mind. He had never cared much about what others thought. John moved through the crowded streets, his boots tapping lightly on the metallic pavement. His long coat swayed behind him, worn and patched from years of work in starship repair bays. Orlia Prime had been his home for the last 7 years, a place where humans could find work but rarely respect. He had learned long ago to keep his head down, to focus on what he could control. Yet tonight, something felt different. A chill ran down his spine as he passed an alleyway where a small, flickering light illuminated a figure sitting on the ground. At first, he thought it was a beggar like any other, a lost soul in the city's underbelly. But as he stepped closer, his heart stopped. Lyra, he froze. The dragon-like alien ex-wife he hadn't seen in years sat huddled against the wall, her wings folded awkwardly behind her. Her scales, once a brilliant mix of crimson and gold, were dulled and dirty. Her eyes, sharp and fierce once, now looked tired and hollow. She reached out with a trembling claw, hoping for spare coins, but no one seemed to notice her. John swallowed hard. The sight of her, so proud, so powerful, now begging in the streets, was almost too much to bear. Memories flooded back. The nights they spent flying among the stars, the heated arguments over duty and freedom, the laughter and the love they had shared. And now this. He stepped closer carefully. Lyra, his voice was low, almost a whisper. She looked up, startled, her eyes narrowing. For a moment he thought she might attack, but then recognition flickered across her face and her shoulders slumped. "John," she murmured, almost ashamed. He knelt beside her, keeping a safe distance. "What happened?" She shook her head, tears welling up in her golden eyes. I lost everything." John's mind raced. Lyra had always been strong, one of the most respected commanders among her kind. Dragons like her were known across multiple star systems for their courage, their intelligence, and their strength. How could she have fallen so far? "Everything," he asked carefully. "What do you mean?" Lyra hesitated, her claws fidgeting with the corner of her tattered cloak. "They took my command, my honor, even my wings. I'm nobody now, and there's no one to help me." John's heart ached. Humans were often underestimated, but he had learned long ago that even the smallest humans could make a difference. And if there was anyone who could help her now, it was him. "You don't have to stay here," he said firmly. "Come with me, I'll help you." She shook her head violently. "I can't, I don't deserve help, not from a human." John gave a small, wry smile. "Humans are better than you think. Come on, let's get you out of this alley." Reluctantly, she allowed him to help her to her feet. Every movement was awkward, her wings dragging behind her. The other aliens on the street watched curiously, whispering to one another, but no one interfered. Humans were rarely brave enough to confront dragonkind directly, but John had never cared about fear. As they walked, the city seemed to grow darker, as though the weight of her misfortune had followed them. Lyra's voice was quiet. They destroyed my life, John, and soon they might come for you too." John frowned. "Who?" She shook her head. "The council, the elite. They didn't want a dragon like me rising above their control. I was too free. And now they've made sure no one will remember me." John's mind worked quickly. Humans were small, weak in body compared to many aliens, but they had one advantage: ingenuity. He could think, plan, and adapt in ways the council would never expect, and if Lyra was in danger, he would do whatever it took to protect her. "Then we fix this," he said simply. "I don't know how yet, but we'll figure it out, together." Lyra looked at him, surprise and disbelief in her eyes. "Together? You humans are not strong enough for this. You'll fail." John chuckled softly. "Maybe, but at least I'll try. And if anyone underestimates a human, that's their mistake." For a moment, Lyra said nothing. The silence between them was heavy, filled with the unspoken memories of their past. And then finally she whispered, "I don't know if I can trust anyone anymore." John put a hand on her shoulder, firm but gentle. "Then trust me, just this once. That's all I ask." She hesitated, then nodded slightly. It wasn't agreement, but it was enough. They moved through the city together, avoiding the main streets where the richer aliens flaunted their wealth. John led her to a small, modest human settlement tucked between the towering alien skyscrapers. The buildings were simple, built from reinforced metals and recycled materials, but they were safe. Here, humans had built a life on ingenuity and cooperation, surviving in a galaxy that often ignored them. "Here," he said, opening the door to a small apartment. "You can rest, eat. We'll figure out what to do next." Lyra stepped inside slowly, her eyes scanning the modest interior. She had never known humans to live like this, surviving with little but making the most of it. There was a strange dignity in it, a quiet strength that was easy to miss if you were looking only at size and power. John gestured to a small table. "Food first, we'll talk later." She nodded, lowering herself to a chair. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to relax, though her eyes remained wary. Over the next hour, John watched her eat, noticing how careful she was, how little she had left to enjoy simple comforts. He felt a pang of guilt and resolve. Humans had little, but what they lacked in power, they made up for in cleverness and courage. And if anyone could help a fallen dragon, a human could. Finally, Lyra spoke, her voice quiet. "John, why do you help me? You don't even have to." John shrugged, smiling faintly. "Humans help because it's right, not because we expect reward. And I don't know. Maybe I still care about you even after everything." Lyra looked down, the shadow of her pride returning. You're a fool. Humans, you always surprise me, but perhaps that is why I need you." John's smile widened. "Good, then let's start planning. First, we find out who did this to you. Then we take back what's yours, one step at a time." Outside, the city continued to buzz, unaware of the small human and the fallen dragon making their plans. The galaxy might have underestimated humans for centuries, but tonight, one human was about to prove that courage, ingenuity, and heart could change even the most hopeless situation. Lyra leaned back in her chair, watching John move around the apartment, organizing scraps of data and old gadgets. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe she had underestimated humans too. And as she watched him, she realized something else. This human, small, clever, unassuming, might just be the one being in the galaxy who could help her rise again. The night was long, and the city outside slept under the glow of distant stars. But inside that small apartment, a plan was forming. A plan that would change the course of two lives, and perhaps, in time, the galaxy itself. And for the first time, Lyra allowed herself to believe that humans could be more than they seemed. The next morning, Aurelia Prime woke under a pale green sun. The city streets were already busy with merchants, travelers, and aliens of all shapes and sizes. But inside the small human apartment, silence reigned. John Rayner had been awake for hours, moving quickly between gadgets, datapads, and scraps of information he had scavenged over the years. Lyra sat at the table, her wings folded awkwardly behind her, staring at the floor. Pride and shame battled across her face. For years, she had been one of the most respected dragon commanders in the galaxy, but now she was broken, forced to rely on a human, a species she had long considered small, weak, and unimportant. John noticed her gaze. "You don't have to sit there feeling useless," he said gently. "We're going to fix this, step by step. First, we find out who did this to you." Lyra's eyes flicked up. "You think it's that simple? The Council, they control everything. They have spies everywhere. They crush anyone who opposes them, even dragons." John leaned back, rubbing his chin. "Maybe, but they haven't met a human like me. Humans, we survive by thinking, adapting, and acting in ways no one expects. They might control the galaxy, but they can't predict ingenuity. Lyra's gaze softened slightly. She wanted to scoff, to say he was foolish, but deep down she felt a flicker of hope. Humans were underestimated, yes, but maybe that was their greatest strength. The investigation begins. John spent the morning tapping into old networks, hacking minor records, and following small leads. His apartment filled with flickering holographic screens and mechanical tools, all connected in a makeshift data system that looked fragile, but worked better than it had any right to. Lyra watched him, intrigued despite herself. "You humans, you make so little do so much." John grinned. "We have to. If we had everything given to us, we wouldn't be human. We survive because we adapt. That's what makes us dangerous." She leaned forward. "Dangerous against the Council? You're joking, right?" John shook his head. "No. They may have power, but humans have something they don't: unpredictability. You think like a dragon, but I think like a human. And that combination, hard to beat." Lyra blinked, realizing he might actually be serious. Maybe humans weren't so weak after all. Hours passed as they pieced together fragments of information. John discovered that Lyra had been betrayed by her own command, a coalition of jealous dragon leaders who had conspired with alien elites on the council. They had manipulated events, spreading lies that made it seem like Lyra had disobeyed orders, endangered missions, and betrayed her people. The more John uncovered, the more furious Lyra became. Her claws clenched, her teeth bared. "How dare they?" she hissed. "I served them, I trusted them, and this is how they repay me." John stayed calm. "Anger is good, but it won't help us yet. We need evidence, a plan, and allies. Step 1, survive the Council's attention. Step 2, expose the truth." Lyra's pride battled her humility. She wanted to act immediately, to confront the conspirators with fire and fury. But John's human patience and logic were already beginning to influence her. The human advantage over the next 2 days, John demonstrated something Lyra hadn't expected: human ingenuity in action. First, he built a small surveillance drone using scraps of metal and circuits. The drone was simple, no larger than a human hand, but it had cameras, audio sensors, and the ability to fly silently through the city's lower levels. Lyra watched, astonished, as the tiny machine slipped past guards and security checkpoints, bringing back images of secret meetings and hidden offices. "Humans, you're clever," she muttered. "I never thought of this. Dragons usually fight with strength, not this." John smiled. "Strength has its place, but sometimes brains beat brawn, and that's where humans shine." Then he taught Lyra a few tricks of his own: how to move silently, how to observe without being noticed, and how to interpret the smallest details in body language and surroundings. For the first time, Lyra realized that humans weren't physically impressive compared to dragons, but they were cunning, adaptable, and persistent. By the 3rd day, they had gathered enough evidence to confirm John's suspicion. Lyra had been set up. The council had orchestrated her fall, making sure that her name and reputation would be erased from all records. And worse, they had planted agents to follow anyone who might help her, meaning John himself was now in danger. The first confrontation. Late that evening, as the city lights flickered against the dark sky, they were ambushed. 2 council enforcers, massive insectoid aliens with sharp claws and armored exoskeletons, cornered them in the alley outside the apartment. "Give her to us," one hissed, its mandibles clicking. "She belongs to the council now." Lyra's wings spread instinctively, ready to fight, but John stepped forward, calm and collected. "Not so fast," he said. In his hand he held a small device cobbled together from wires and batteries. A sudden pulse emitted from it, sending the enforcers stumbling back, their armor sparking. Lyra's eyes widened. What is that?" "Human tech," John said simply. "Small, cheap, but effective. Sometimes brains beat strength." Using their combined skills, Lyra's strength and agility, John's clever devices and planning, they forced the enforcers to retreat. Lyra landed heavily, breathing hard. "You humans, you're impossible," John grinned. "We have to be. Otherwise, we don't survive." For Lyra, the fight was more than survival, it was a revelation. Humans might be weak physically, but their courage, creativity, and determination made them formidable. And this human John had just proved it, the plan to strike back. After the confrontation, they retreated to the safety of the apartment. Lyra's pride was mixed with awe. She had always thought humans were fragile, incapable of standing against galactic power, but John had shown her otherwise. "We can't just survive," Lyra said. "We need to act. We need to take back my name and expose the council." John nodded. "Agreed, but we do it smart. We find allies, gather more evidence, and hit them where they least expect it. Humans don't rely on force. We rely on brains, patience, and unpredictability. That's our advantage." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "And what if we fail?" John's smile was calm, unwavering. "Then we fail together, but humans, we rarely fail twice in a row." Lyra couldn't help but chuckle despite herself. There was something undeniably human about his confidence, something infectious. She had underestimated humans for too long, and it had almost cost her everything. Over the next week, they moved through the city carefully, meeting old allies who had stayed loyal to Lyra in secret. John's human ingenuity made infiltration and information gathering possible, while Lyra's strength and reputation opened doors in ways a human never could. Together, they were a perfect team, unpredictable, clever, and daring. The reveal of the larger conspiracy. Finally, one night, their investigations revealed the full scope of the council's plan. Lyra had been just the first target. The council intended to remove any leader who could challenge their authority, dragon, alien, or human. Entire star systems could fall under their control if left unchecked. Lyra stared at the data projected in front of her, her claws tightening around the edge of the table. They're planning to dominate everything. This is bigger than me." John nodded gravely. "Exactly, and now you see why helping you isn't just about saving a dragon. It's about showing the galaxy what humans can do and stopping a dangerous regime." Lyra's wings twitched. "Then we act. We can't wait any longer." John smiled faintly. "Exactly, but we strike smart. Human brains first, claws second." They spent the night planning, going over every detail, every potential ally, every weakness they could exploit. The stakes were higher than ever, and failure meant more than personal loss. It could mean domination of the galaxy by a corrupt council. Lyra looked at John, her respect for humans growing. "I underestimated you. Humans, maybe you are stronger than I thought." John shrugged. "We survive. That's our strength. That's what makes humans humans." Outside, the city continued its endless hum. Stars twinkled in the distance, unaware that a human and a fallen dragon were planning a strike that could shake the galaxy. And in that moment, Lyra realized the truth. Humans were not weak, not insignificant, not disposable. They were unpredictable, clever, and fearless. And with one human by her side, she might just rise again. The city of Orlia Prime slept under a silver moon, unaware of the storm brewing in its shadows. Inside a modest human apartment, two figures leaned over a holographic map projected from a small device. John Rayner and Lyra, the fallen dragon commander, had spent the last week planning. Every move, every ally, every weakness of the council had been studied. Failure was not an option. "We strike tonight," John said, pointing to the central council headquarters on the map. "We hit their communication hubs, their data cores, and most importantly, we expose their conspiracy to the galaxy. They think they're untouchable. They haven't met humans like me before." Lyra's golden eyes gleamed with determination. "I've underestimated humans, underestimated you. But tonight we change that. Tonight the council pays for what they did to me." John smiled faintly. "We'll do it smart. Brains first, brawn second. And don't worry, I have a few surprises ready." Lyra flexed her wings, which had grown stronger during their training and preparation. Though she had been weakened by betrayal, the fire in her veins had returned. Then let's begin. The infiltration. The streets outside were quiet as they approached the council's headquarters, a towering spire of black metal and glass. Security drones hummed overhead, scanning for intruders. But John, as always, had a human trick ready. He tossed a small device onto the street. It emitted a pulse of light and sound that jammed the drone's sensors for 30 seconds. A short window, but enough. Lyra leaped silently, her wings carrying her over the perimeter walls, while John slipped in through a service tunnel he had discovered during their surveillance. Inside, the council headquarters was vast and cold, filled with alien elites working at glowing consoles. John navigated the halls with the precision of a seasoned engineer, avoiding guards and cameras. Every step was calculated. Every movement mattered. At the central data hub, he planted his human-designed devices, small, nearly invisible tools that could copy and broadcast the council's secrets. Lyra watched from above, ready to strike if anyone came near. "You humans, you really do make the impossible look easy," she whispered. John grinned. "We have to, otherwise we don't survive." The council's reaction. It didn't take long for the council to notice. Alarms blared and guards swarmed the corridors. The insectoid enforcers from before led the charge, their claws ready to strike. But John had anticipated this. He pressed a button on one of his devices. A series of holographic images burst into the council's central chamber, showing evidence of corruption, betrayal, and secret plots. Every alien watching gasped, recognizing the truth they had been shielded from. Lyra roared, her wings spreading wide as she swooped down into the chamber, her claws precise and powerful. She disabled the guards who tried to stop her, moving with grace and strength that belied her recent hardships. John worked at the consoles, rerouting security systems and broadcasting the evidence to every corner of the city, every nearby planet, every ship in orbit. The truth of the council's treachery could no longer be hidden. Human ingenuity in action. As more guards approached, John deployed another human invention, a swarm of small, flying drones, each no bigger than a human fist. They zipped through the hallways, creating confusion, tripping sensors, and disabling weapons. Aliens who relied on strength and intimidation were thrown into chaos by the unexpected tactics of a single human. Lyra fought alongside him, amazed. "Your species, your mind is a weapon, John, stronger than any claw or fire I've known." John smiled wryly. "Brains, speed, and unpredictability. That's the human advantage." Together, human and dragon made an unstoppable team. Where brute force alone might have failed, clever strategy turned the tide. Every council enforcer who came near was met with precision, planning, and clever traps. The turning point at the heart of the council chamber, the leader, the tallest, most imposing alien of them all, turned toward them, rage in their eyes. "How dare you?" "A human and a dragon defying us." Lyra stepped forward, voice strong and commanding. "You stole everything from me. You humiliated me. And now the galaxy will see your crimes." John activated his final device. A holographic message projected across the entire sector. Names, plots, betrayals, and evidence of illegal actions. Planets, ships, and systems across the galaxy received the broadcast instantly. Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Members argued, pointed fingers, and realized too late that their secrets were exposed. The very species they had thought inferior, the humans, had outsmarted them. Lyra's roar echoed across the hall as she struck down the council's elite enforcers, precise and deadly. John moved with equal precision, his human-sized body avoiding attacks while deploying clever traps that disabled even the largest guards. By the time reinforcements arrived, the council was already in disarray. Their power, once absolute, was shattered by the courage, intelligence, and determination of one human and one fallen dragon. Victory and redemption. When the dust settled, Lyra stood victorious, her wings spread wide, gleaming in the dim light of the chamber. She looked at John, gratitude shining in her eyes. I could not have done this without you. You humans, you are more than I ever imagined. John shrugged, smiling faintly. We survive, that's our power, and sometimes we surprise the galaxy. The council members who remained had no choice but to step down. Evidence of their crimes had been broadcast to countless systems. Dragons, aliens, and humans across the galaxy watched in awe. The fallen commander's name, Lyra's name, was restored. She had honor, power, and respect once more. And John, well, he had proven something even greater. Humanity was not weak. Humans could survive, adapt, and triumph in ways no alien could predict. One human could change the course of the galaxy. The aftermath. Days later, Orcs Prime buzzed with a new energy. News of the Council's corruption and the human-dragon partnership spread quickly. Humans were no longer underestimated. Aliens whispered about the clever human who had helped a dragon commander rise again, about the species who relied on brains, courage, and adaptability to overcome impossible odds. Lyra visited John's apartment, not as a fallen ex-wife, but as a partner in change. You saved me, and in doing so you've shown the galaxy what humans can do. John smiled, shrugging again. I didn't do it alone. You fought bravely and together. Well, we make a good team. Lyra's wings flickered, the golden scales shining bright once more. Perhaps I have misjudged humans. Maybe we need your species more than we realized. John laughed softly. I'll take that as a compliment. In the weeks that followed, humans began to gain respect across Orcs Prime and beyond. They were no longer seen as weak, disposable, or unimportant. Their ingenuity, courage, and persistence became known and feared by those who had once looked down on them. And for Lyra, the fallen dragon who had been humiliated, betrayed, and broken, there was a new truth. Strength was not just about scales, claws, or fire. Strength was about trust, adaptability, and courage. And humans, this small, clever species, had taught her exactly what that meant. The final HFY moment, standing on a high balcony overlooking the city, John and Lyra watched the lights of Orcs Prime twinkle below. Ships flew in formation, dragons soared in the skies, and humans moved confidently through the streets, no longer underestimated. Lyra turned to John. Do you know, humans are incredible. I was wrong about you, about your species, about you. John smiled, hands in his pockets. We survive, that's our strength, and sometimes we make the galaxy sit up and notice. She laughed softly, the sound full of relief and admiration. Then the galaxy has learned a lesson tonight. Humans are not weak, not in body, not in mind, and not in spirit, not ever. John nodded, watching the stars above. And as long as humans are willing to think, adapt, and fight, the galaxy will never forget it. For the first time in a long while, Lyra felt free. She had her honor back, her name restored, and a new understanding of what it meant to survive in a galaxy filled with danger and betrayal. And John, well, he had reminded the galaxy that humans were clever, brave, and unstoppable when underestimated. One human could, indeed, change everything. The galaxy had been warned. Humans were here to stay.